So, I think I got a good one. And it's kind of on the topic of irony, but more so how can we call it? Let's say self-utility.
Like my style? Hit the subscribe button so you
There's
don't miss
so many
any
little
future
things
videos.
that we're capable of that we don't think about often. And some random examples that come to mind are how we can naturally set an alarm for ourselves. Our circadian rhythm allows us to, have a routine or even intended time to wake up, and we can mimic that, over time, or rather create that. And, whether it's things done in spontaneity or even more like intentional abilities, it's crazy what we can do when we put our mind to something, what the subconscious does when, you are in the right line of thinking with respect to your goal. So, on the topic of self-utility, you have to think sometimes inside the box, We're often told, think outside because you'll have perhaps more exciting or creative ways to solve a problem. And that makes sense, if you're trying to add some personality to it, perhaps. But there's also things that we can do that just make sense, they're practical, and they help us to get ahead. So some small practices that we really ought to be performing. And one of those seems to be preparation, Doesn't have to be large scale. It's just, a small functional pattern that allows you to be set up for certain situations. Okay, what does that look like? It depends. Are we talking financially, professionally, relationally? Maybe more so just on a fundamental level. So if you're trying to go somewhere, think about what are some reasonable steps to keep you on track and to, get you there perhaps quickly, but also safely. So, being prepared may involve, a short list or a longer list, of items that get you into the right frame of mind again to feel that type of way, again, to reach your goal. So this is kind of coming full circle because why I say irony is that sometimes we kind of do things innately that help us to get ahead. And what's ironic is we don't even really realize that those practices are taking place, but they're so ingrained in us almost, in our sense of being. Like when I go to the store, I don't even have, an open mind in terms of what I could buy. There's so many items. There's so many things that, would probably really switch up how I'm, living / eating and etc. But I have the same, few things that I always buy, and it's just kind of in my blood to be cheap, at least in terms of, taking care of myself and that sort of thing and not splurging. But everybody has things like this, and you'll develop your own through time because you'll enter new situations that require, certain skills to be presented, or, just perhaps you charging into something versus it happening to you. So that's another way that these types of skills can get engaged. So, when we say utility, it's just about realizing the application. How can you use what it is that you have to get what you want, or need? And first it takes recognizing what do you have, what do you offer, and then perhaps who would you like to offer it to. So there's a variety of ways, of coming into those things, but life does have a way of, making it come to you. So that's what's pretty cool. You don't have to stress so much because these things seem to find you, and you're able to, refine certain skills through those, and not to mention learn new ones. So you do have to be open to hearing new information. I think that is a two-way street. Utility means, of course, the value in your devices and abilities, etc., however you want to characterize the metaphor. And I lost that train of thought, man. Yep, completely lost it, darn. Wow. Well, just to kind of reframe, it's just about acknowledging certain aspects of yourself, and those might be obvious ones and perhaps less obvious ones at times. So you'll feel out which ones are which, perhaps ones that are even more mysterious. A good example of that is me being biracial, and my genetic history is mixed. So my paternal side I know is African, from what I understand, and I say it like that because I was adopted. So there's a big question mark on my paternal side of what kind of genetics I have exactly, but I think it still goes into something that I offer. It seems like certain ways of thinking could potentially have been derived from different places, including maybe where I was born, slash what type of racial ethnic background I have. So again, just going back through the nuance different ways, is there's so many ways to characterize this. So even how I'm saying it is kind of making it more fancy than what it needs to be. It's just about the simplicity of the recognition, not to be too wordy, but you're trying to make it easier to just identify what you have, what you have, where you can use it, who can use it for, and that'll help you to locate so many things. It'll help you to locate probably what areas do you feel most drawn to, what kinds of people can you connect with the deepest, maybe what types of actions do you like to take, because all this is really one big act. We're all moving, we're all playing, we're all doing, and that means that there's always something to be done, I guess. So yeah, oh darn, I'm losing that one too. So I think trying to wrap it up is just to say that the irony that I mentioned is this subtext to everything, and as long as you are playing and doing and moving, you're always aware of that and unaware of that at the same time. I think Alan Watts put that the best when he said that, like, when you notice you're doing it, that's when you're no longer doing it, and then that's when you start doing something else. And just kind of thinking about how funny that is, that you can be aware and not aware at the same time, and it's kind of a paradox, but that's kind of the human experience, is to, you know, as you deepen these skills and abilities, you'll begin to increase the number of, you know, kind of instinctive or innate powers that are available. Maybe a good example is reflex. You know, reflex is such a, you know, sharp mental power. You know, being able to react instantly to something, or just to be aware of things like on a micro level, or perhaps just like a really strong sense of, you know, direction. Being able to just like always pinpoint where you are spatially and to, you know, understand what's around you. Those are just a few of the things. You know, it's a long list. You know, of course, there's like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and I'm sure there's many more types. So what's cool about this conversation, what's cool about this topic, is that it can keep going, but at any point, you know, you can kind of realize how long you're going into it, and that's when you kind of get pulled back out. And it's, again, that nuance, it's the humor, but it's also the, you know, serious and realness of it that keeps you engaged. And that's pretty much what life is, you know? It's to like feel all these different, you know, afflictions that, you know, hit you from different angles at any given time, and they can interact with each other. You can interact with them. You can avoid them, you know, and that's the, you know, that's a pretty damn good metaphor, I think, if I do say so myself. So I think we really are wrapping it up, and yeah, I would love to hear anybody watching this if you have any thoughts on the topic. Hopefully I was clear enough. I know I kind of lost the thought for a bit there a couple of times, but it's an open thread, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a discussion that keeps going, because, you know, the way that each of us describe this and, you know, think through this, it's just like an extension of the next person, because everybody has a slightly different view on it. And so you can get slightly different experiences, you can get slightly different circumstances, you can get slightly different skills, and you can get slightly different lives. So yeah, if you like the video, subscribe if you want, and see you soon. Peace.